This was originally inspired by a video that went viral by the media about a dog who was separated by a young boy. The dog was named Snowball. So during Hurricane Katrina, there was a bunch of evacuation and everything, but there wasn't a lot of protocols for evacuating pets, and Hurricane Katrina highlighted this issue. So just some facts about the situation that they were dealing with. 263 shelter dogs were evacuated prior to the event because they did make their efforts. However, they did lack additional evacuation plans for pets actually in households. But there were over 259,000 family-owning pets in New Orleans, and over 104,000 estimated roughly were abandoned by those families. But on the bright side, 44%, kind of on the bright side, 44% of people refused to abandon their pets. They decided that they were going to stick with their babies. But the little white dog his name was Snowball, and how ironic that this story snowballed into a major lesson because it went viral. Good news, the dog was eventually reunited with the son, but the little kid was videoed being separated from the dog, and he was crying so badly that he actually vomited on screen.
So now you're saying that's Snowball there?
That's Snowball.
That's Snowball. I remember that part of the
This
video.
little, they weren't sure if he was a Maltese or
okay.
they weren't sure of his breed, so it actually took a couple of years to find him. But
Very good.
this snowballed into this initiated the implementation of emergency protocols by states and federal and local governments. So the PETS Act was brought about, and it basically gives FEMA, an organization, more authorities and responsibilities so that they are able to properly care for and house these pets and no longer abandon them. So it is not effective alone, however. It needs KEMRA and NRF. These stand for Post-Katrina Management Reform Act and National Response Framework. So the PETS Act, its main job is it gives FEMA the power to provide rescue, care, and shelter for individuals with pets, and this allows it to find more funding as well. This act, the Post-Katrina Management Reform Act, places FEMA in charge of coordinating federal emergency responses and obtaining support. The NRF Act also gives FEMA, it helps FEMA by outlining the responsibilities and responses of communities, states, federal government sectors, private sectors, and non-governmental partners. This makes things less confusing and allows them to act faster. Oh, and here is the man in charge of this. He is the one that we can all thank. His name is Robert T. Stafford, and this is a pet, getting pet. So, but just in case you do have to leave your animal or evacuate immediately with your animal, here are some kits that you can use depending on the animal that you have. So we have small animal evacuation kits, equine evacuation kits, livestock, backyard and poultry birds kits, evacuating birds, reptiles, small mammals, and other pets. So at the end of my PowerPoint, I will have a source link that will provide a complete list of all the animal kits that I just listed. However, these are highlights, maybe some things you haven't thought of or I haven't thought of, so they surprised me, and I was sure to put them on there. So for the small animal evacuation kit, there is 2 weeks supply of food and water, veterinary records, and proof of ownership, printed pictures of animals, and I really want to highlight these 2 because during the Hurricane Katrina, a lot of people had a hard time getting their animals back because they didn't have proof of ownership. People who found the animals got attached, it took too long for them to find them, and there's a big issue with who this animal should actually go to. Also medication, instructions on how to feed your dog and give these medications, leash, collars, food, water bowls, spoons for scooping out food, and a can opener. And also stakes and long leads in case you have to leave your dog somewhere for a set amount of time, toys and a first aid kit. So for equine evacuation kit, you'll do 7 to 10 day supply of feed because 14 days is a little extensive to ask for. You'll want same things with the small animal, vet records, pictures, proof of ownership, bandanas. This is a fly mask, I believe. Also could be used as a blinder, but you want to at least have some form of way of blinding your animal for their like safety and for their stress, because you know how horses use blinders when they're like walking down the streets. It's usually to help them not like freak out so much. So you'll want something like that. And then blankets, tarps, trash bags. These can just be used for warmth, or trash bags will be used for waste. A hoof set, which will include a knife, nippers, pick, and rasp. Instructions for diet medications, leg wraps, because horses have they need and rely on their legs probably more than any other animal. And then non-nylon halters and leads, but you want cotton and leather. An emergency ID card, which here's an example over here. I didn't know this, and I didn't actually find it online, but it's a really good idea for if you're if you have like more than just like 1 or 2 horses and it's really hard to evacuate with your horse. One of the things you can do is you can braid like an emergency ID card or multiple in your horse, and you can just set them free so that when they're found, they'll at least have some sort of form of identification on
I was
them.
wondering where you're gonna put the card on the horse.
Braided in their mane.
Yeah,
Or wherever you can.
yeah, the
Figure it
mane would
out.
be very safe, because they can't get to it, and there's a lot of hair to work with. I like that idea.
It wasn't mine. It was.
Yeah, that's neat, that's neat.
Yeah, and then a shovel, more ID cards, and first aid kit. For livestock evacuation kit, we will, same thing, 7 to 10 days, feed supply and water. Vet records, proof of ownership, duct tape, just because for some reason farmers, I don't know how or why they manage to use duct tape on like cow, like they are able to use like I work with dairy cows, and I've seen them use super glue on cows. And like for me, I would never use these on my animals, but apparently livestock animals are much more hardier, so you'll be surprised for the things that you could use duct tape for. Heavy gloves, nose leads, plastic trash cans, these could be used for water. And whips of prods, water buckets, more water buckets, I would call them feed buckets then if they're smaller. Instructions for diet and medications. And then for backyard poultry birds and evacuation kits, same thing, 7 to 10 days feed of water. For chickens, you could use you would want vitamin and electrolyte packs. These can be added to water, since when they're stressed, they kind of tend to eat less, just like any other animal. So this will help get them their vitamins and electrolytes, things that they'll need. Leg bands you can put on a chicken with an emergency number, or maybe some sort of form of identification number that you can later use as a proof of ownership. Crates, coops, and blankets for transport. Shavings or other absorbent materials. Waters and feeders. Cleaning supplies for feeders and drinkers. And then consider special equipment such as heat lamps, depending on what conditions and environmental conditions that you're evacuating in. Other animals, like pet birds, they'll also need necessary dietary supplements, a plant mister for cooling, a hot water bottle for heating, and if you see any signs of sickness or stress, you can lower their perch, the food and water bowls, to kind of help them like adjust a little better. That way they're not too stressed and not flying to a higher level perch. And then for reptiles, you can actually transport them in a pillowcase. I was shocked by that, but I guess that's fair.
I've had
for
people
snakes.
bring snakes to class in a pillowcase.
They just carry them around.
They just carry it around, and they go in and they grab a snake and hand it go. Yeah.
You can tie the
Yeah.
top in a knot. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't think that the snake would care too much for that, but.
It's amazing how many people do.
And then before you transport them, you would want to promote defecation, just so like for cleanliness inside the pillowcase. And to do this for turtles, snakes, and other reptiles, you can usually soak them in like a shallow bath. That'll help promote them to poop. And then for the kit, you can also have spray bottles for misting, a heating pad, batteries for heating and cooling devices, handling gloves, and then For snakes, mostly snakes, you want to determine if bringing their food is necessary, because a lot of times feeding them in an unknown environment can cause more stress. So you'll want to like determine that. Plus, storing it might cause it to go a little sour. So it all depends on the situation. And then plan for escapes. Other animals like amphibians and small animals, we would want for amphibians a small or medium-sized plastic watertight containers, but only fill it about a third of the way full and with fresh air for the top. And then make small ventilation holes and bring another container for water, along with food, depending on stress levels again, like similar to snakes, like I've said before. And then small animals, mainly hamsters and rabbits, they're pretty easy to transport on their own, so basically just take them and go, but add a blanket, some extra bedding that you're gonna need, appropriate exercise equipment, and dietary supplements. And these are my sources, and this is the link for all of the full list of each kit that I've
Of
used
each
so far.
kit, okay, that's neat.
Mhm.
Questions, comments? Let's give her a round of applause before we forget. Yeah, it's interesting, you know, the disasters, I'm not sure if there's more occurring or we just get a better news coverage of them, but the hurricanes, you know, there's a whole line of hurricanes out there in the Caribbean. But one thing about horses, you know, last summer they had all those fires in California. And even if you run a horse farm, you don't have enough trailers for all the horses that are there, usually. You know, you have a horse trailer or two, some are 2 horse, if you're familiar, some are even 1, but some are 4, maybe 6. But I think last year when they had the fires coming, they didn't have enough trailers to carry them away. So I like the idea that they had them, you know, can identify the horse. But then I was back here thinking, you know how we identify especially dogs with the chip, right? Could you put that same chip in a horse? You know what I mean? Who cares if it's not a dog? Yes.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you're like looking for like the tractors and stuff, but like with racehorses and stuff, you tattoo their lips.
You tattoo their lips. Okay, I like that.
I think it's USEF that's now requiring everyone to microchip their horses before they can show it.
Really?
Those shows. And a lot of people microchip anyway for breed registration things or just
Or theft,
yeah.
if somebody steals your
Theft
horse.
isn't, you know, it's a little bit hard to steal.
Yeah.
a
Now,
horse.
is there a chip for a horse, or is it dog chips used in horses?
I'm not sure if it's like it's all the same brand. I'm not sure if
Okay.
there's a difference.
Mhm.
Maybe the needle's just different.
And here's the kicker though, horses live longer than dogs. So I'm wondering if they develop a horse model that's a little bigger, that's got a better battery, because, you know, if you're not familiar with horses, they can get up into the 30s, you know, horse people. What's the longest lived horse you've ever known about? Or had?
The oldest horse ever was like 62, and
Yeah.
he lived, what's even crazier is he lived back in like the 1800s.
Yeah, I mean, there's some records, but how about like
Oh,
an
personally?
average, personally, that you know, or whatever?
I know a 37-year-old horse that's still being ridden.
What,
37.
It's 37,
still
yeah.
being ridden.
easy into the 30s, I mean, if it's cared for, right? So the chip that's made for the dog isn't made for 30 years. I know that, right? There's no dog that lives 30. That'd be interesting, no, but I was sitting here thinking, gee, a chip would be neat. Other things? Yeah, because I mean, all these disasters, there's somebody over there who's going to comment.
Well, on the subject of chips, I wonder if you have the same issue in like dogs and cats where they have cases of chip migration will move through the body. I feel like in a horse it's gonna be harder to find if it migrates.
If they make it bigger,
Then it won't move.
that would help. They're way over here.
I was gonna say, I think the other half of it too is kind of like shooting about representation. You want the cards because it gives other information, not just ownership.
Yeah.
To where if you find a random horse in a natural disaster, you know, like medications. feed,
Yeah, and it's
things that
immediate, you
they
don't need a
require.
reader, so why not do both then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if somebody steals your horse, they'll cut out that card, but then you have a backup. You always gotta think, worst case scenario.
So for chip migration, there's a certain spot inside they always implant it on. I'm pretty sure it's the left side, but
Okay,
I don't know. But they will also, that's what always check the other side of the neck too, just to be sure.
Oh, yeah, when
Before
they're
chip,
reading
in
them.
case of migration, they'll check both sides
Yeah.
of the neck and they'll check the whole neck just to So on the off chance that whoever implanted it didn't put it in the right
Yeah,
spot.
you always gotta, if you don't detect it in where it normally would be, then you gotta check the other spots for migration. That's, yeah, definitely true. But there's, it sounds like there's a standard place on the left side of the neck, did you say?
I think it's the left side, but I
Yeah,
could be
yeah, I
wrong.
understand, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this disaster thing is coming in, the people in Katrina, they would say, don't say we abandoned our pets. They would say, we had to leave and the Coast Guard wouldn't take the dogs. So we had to open up bags of food, leave water, and they had no idea when they were coming back. They maybe thought 2-3 days, but it ends up being weeks and weeks and weeks, and quite a story.
It wasn't really an option. A lot of,
Yeah.
like I said, like this Pets Act is new,
Yeah.
but before that, they didn't have a way of caring for the pets.
Right.
So people were given the ultimatum.
Yeah, even if somebody had a car, a lot of the people were poor, they didn't have cars, but even if you had a car and you had so many family members that you were rescuing, sometimes it just wasn't possible to do the dog, and then sometimes hotels up north from New Orleans would have a sign on their door, no pets allowed. So things got better after that. One more comment? Yeah, so great deal, here we go.
I think like an additional thing, like for people who live in those areas such as Florida, it's kind of important for them to look ahead of time. Like my sister lives in Florida, she knows the hotels and areas she can take her animals.
She's plotted it out.
Yeah, to where she can go if there's a disaster, like if there is a
Yeah.
hurricane and she is evacuated, she knows like she can go to that hotel. Normally she'll go up to like higher up Georgia. So I think it's important to also plan for that,
Yeah,
like
I
know
like
the
that.
hotels that you can look at to bring your dogs and cats.
And I guess the one, I hate to say, nice thing about hurricanes, you get a little warning. Because there it is, you know, here it's 2 days ago. Sometimes tornadoes, like Oklahoma has a lot of tornadoes, you have zero warning. You might say there's a storm tonight, but the thing will come down and, you know, wreck the town faster than you can say tornado. And then the fires in California were unpredictable and they could jump. And I mean, there was that one fire, it was a number of years ago, and somebody might be able to help me out. But the wind shifted and this one fire crew, they all lost their lives. You guys remember that?
Yeah, that's.
How many was that? 20-some guys?
23. Remember the Brave, they did a movie about it. It's got smoke jumpers.
Yeah. Is there a movie about it?
Yeah.
Okay, there's one. But the wind shifted. I mean, these are people that are experienced. And the wind shifted and they were trapped. Sorry to end on that sad note. Let's see. Let's end on a good note.
Well, if
You don't have
happens,
to-
if it's an emergency, you'll be just playing with your pet.
There you go. Yeah, get the kit.
Some
And then-
kits are available online. I'm not a salesperson, but I am
Yeah.
just going to mention
No,
that.
it's good. It'd be interesting to go see what's in those kits. On Friday, I may put some more reading. You know, you've got something that's due Monday, right? But that, if I put something on Friday, it'll be due the next Monday. And I think we should do something about viruses, because somebody asked about a retrovirus and just a little general thing about viruses, which a lot of people don't understand. Okay, see you later. Great topics. I mean, really, super topics.
Did you want to?
Yeah. Get that in there. Great topics. Oh, here, thank you so much. Excellent.